taking much stronger action, showing the kind of leadership it needs to take into these international negotiations. And with that, we can build a much stronger system going into the future.
So that was Duncan Marsh and his blog. We were discussing big issues, and lots of people are already sending us comments and questions about big issues. This is now just a quick review of blogs, and please keep sending us all these questions, and we are going to try to address them all later.
Yeah, over the coming weeks. If you send your questions in, you can do that on the chat box on oneclimate.net/Cancun, or using the hashtag OneClimate on Twitter. Send us your questions and your comments, and if we can't answer them ourselves, we'll do our best to get an expert on who can. The final little video blog update that we're going to bring you is from Jake Schmidt of the Natural Resources Defence Council. He's got quite an optimistic take of what's going on here, and also has some interesting stuff to say about the tone of the talks and why he feels it's different to Copenhagen, which we've touched on a little bit. So we'll bring that to you now.
Hi, I'm Jake Schmidt. I'm the International Climate Policy Director at the Natural Resource Defense Council. Today's Tuesday. It's a morning. It's the second day of the global warming negotiations here in Mexico. This is the first of what hopes to be a series of video blogs where I'll try to give you some sense of the progress over these 2 weeks of negotiations, where some of the differences lie, where we're finding some common ground, and where the ultimate outcome might end up over this 2 weeks. So I'll try to give you some of my sense of that meeting. After the first day, the mood is relatively good, but obviously the expectations are very different than they were just 1 year ago in Copenhagen, and that's kind of a sub-story at the beginning of the meeting, how things have shifted in the sense of expectations and the reality of this meeting. So going into Copenhagen, the expectations were very high that we would ultimately find a solution to this issue, and we would come to some kind of new international agreement. There was the prospect of heads of government coming and helping to resolve some of those differences, and ultimately we had 120 heads of government come in the final week of the meeting and sit down and negotiate some of the details of this agreement, which is very rare in these global warming negotiations. We don't have that level of heads of government engagement. We had a huge public attention going into Copenhagen, and things have changed quite a bit. The expectations for this meeting are different. Nobody expects that we'll finalize the ultimate agreement.
Since 2007, OneClimate has been the live broadcaster for the global climate movement. More than 5 million people from 186 countries have tuned into our coverage of COP13, COP14, COP15, and in 2010 already, you've been able to watch no less than 3.
Sorry to interrupt that video there, but we thought we'd come back and say a big welcome to our viewers on Justin TV who just joined us to let you know where we are. We're in Mexico, in Cancun. It's the United Nations climate talks happening here, and there's kind of a big global effort to solve the climate crisis.
And as usual, the OneClimate team is here in full, working very hard to get you the best and most captivating coverage of the COP16.
COP16, okay, so that's the name of these climate talks taking place. We're going to kick off our show with a little bit of a roundup of what's gone on here and some of the big issues that you might want to look out for, and then move on to look at some of the more colourful events happening around the conference centre. So those of our viewers who watched us on Justin TV last month in Tianjin in China, they might have heard me say that actually there was a huge bust-up the last time the international climate talks happened between China and the USA, or at least it was a very public bust-up. I think the Chinese negotiator accused the USA of being like a preening pig or some very undiplomatic language. You'll be glad to know that everybody seems to have kissed and made up. Lots of public efforts here to make sure that people are aware that China and the USA are friends again, and that they're working together and coming closer together in their effort to solve the global climate crisis. So we'll start the evening with some good news.
Positive
news. The talks have opened here 3 days ago now. I think we're on our third day of these talks, and they're due to last 2 weeks. There's not been too many surprises so far. This is a huge international effort to solve a huge international problem, and so the progress tends to be quite slow. We're not going to get to the end of this next week and find out that climate change has been solved, unfortunately.
Well, you never know.
You never know. We can keep our fingers crossed. One of the countries that has come in for a little bit of stick is Japan. Because they, in the opening kind of announcements, they said that they were not going to sign up to the Kyoto Protocol, which has a second commitment period coming up, and the Kyoto Protocol commits almost 40 rich countries to making some emissions reductions to try and stop global warming. But Japan has said it doesn't want to commit to a second commitment period unless big countries like the USA and China also join the club. This has come in for a lot of criticism, and people are surprised that Japan has come out and said this on the first day of the talks, I think it was, because potentially this is going to cause delays and stall the talks, because the USA isn't ready to join the Kyoto Protocol. The politics there aren't conducive to that, and China feels that as a country with huge development issues and huge poverty issues, it should be cut a little bit of slack. Because it says, our emissions per person are very low, and that's not the case for these bigger countries. So we'll see what happens. And in the meantime, Japan seems to be coming in for a lot of criticism. Christian Aid, a big international non-governmental organisation that monitors these talks and campaigns around climate change, said that they've potentially put millions of lives at risk. So that's a story we'll be following throughout the next week. If you were with us a year ago in Copenhagen, you might remember the Copenhagen Climate Conference, this huge international summit where they hoped they would get a big global deal to solve climate change. Then you might find the scenes behind us a little bit odd. In Copenhagen, there were international celebrities, there were prime ministers, presidents wandering around. We spoke to 2 or 3 presidents, ranging from Angela Merkel to the president of the Maldives. And here it's a slightly lower
more
key.
Quiet.
Yeah, more quiet, a lower key affair. The big world leaders either aren't coming or they're not here yet. Some might turn up next week. And some people are expressing a little bit of frustration about that. President Lula of Brazil has said, he's kind of questioned how much can get done here unless you have the big players. He says if it's only environmental ministers, maybe not even foreign ministers, then how's there going to be progress? But actually, maybe there's a hope that without the politics involved too much, it might give room to the negotiators to actually get some of the practical solutions that we need to climate change done. And then just to wrap up, there's a lot of discussion here about to what extent we should try and limit global warming, because the science now suggests that we're committed to a minimum rise of 1, potentially 2 degrees Celsius, which is going to be catastrophic for some countries. 2 degrees is the target that they've come out with in Copenhagen, and said most countries agreed that we should aim for this. But that's not going to be enough for millions and millions of people around the world. People who live on small islands are going to essentially sink, according to the science. People who live in many huge parts of Africa are not going to be able to farm in the way they have done for generations, because they're talking about temperature rises of 3 or 4 degrees for them if it's a 2-degree global average. And so these countries have been really keen to keep an alternative option on the table for discussions, kind of 1.5 degrees. Unfortunately, from their perspective, it wasn't a good day for them yesterday, because that kind of dimension of the talks has been delayed until June. Now, we've spoken a lot to small island states during our coverage, and they tell you that it's really difficult for them to actually be engaged in the diplomacy here, because they're tiny. They've only got 1 or 2 diplomats, and they can't get to all of the meetings. And it seems that that's what happened here. They weren't in one of the big meetings where this was being discussed, and I think Saudi Arabia quietly shunted the issue to be discussed in June. So there's a kind of a brief kind of update on what's happening at these talks, and hopefully it gives you an idea of the kinds of issues that are being discussed. But it's not all grey and policy focused.
Not at all. And this was an update of news from today, but we have been here since Monday, and we've been gathering bits of news and bits of footage and reports since then. And we have a very special report from Monday. And as you were saying, it's not all grey and dull here. There's a bit of laughter and fun going on.
Yeah, this is something called Fossil of the Day. It's apparently
a bit of an institution. You tell me. This is my first COP.
Yeah.
So you've seen this happen.
Yeah, it's
them before.
In Copenhagen, they're huge. It's some of the big climate organisations here. They monitor the talks very closely, and they try and work out which countries are blocking the talks, which countries are allowing the talks to proceed, and they identify the bad guys, basically.
Well, on Monday, I think because it was the first one this year, everyone was wondering who is going to win the fossil of the day. I went along, I wasn't sure what to expect, and I found it quite entertaining, actually. Shall we watch the video?
Okay, let's put it on.
COP16. I trust all of you have been very well since Copenhagen and very busy trying to save the world. Thank you. We're here in Cancun. The sun is shining, as we can tell by these fluorescent lights that we're in all day. And the air is clear, and we all are relaxing on the beach most of the day, I am sure. But I won't waste any more of your time. There are Blackberries to Twitter with, and Twitters to message with, and text to send. So, without further ado, we shall begin the Fossil of the Day award ceremony. In third place for the Fossil of the Day, drum roll please. Fossilness. Would you like to say a few words?
I would love. Actually, we've been working very hard, so I've prepared a few words. Now, here we go. We are so grateful for this embarrassing prize. It means a lot to our country to know we are distinguishing ourselves on the world stage. Watch out, first and second place. We're gonna catch ya.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. Canada, having won the Fossil of the Year, the Colossal Fossil Award in Copenhagen, is not gonna be stumped this year, I do not think. They have spent the whole year since Copenhagen backing down from their already weak targets to another weaker target which is still being written. So we'll see how that one comes out. And heading all of this up is Environmental Minister John Baird, who some of you might remember as being the strong holdout in Bali against science-based targets. So, who could possibly be more fossil-y than that? Drum roll, please!
We did contingency planning this time, so we have another so please just say. Et dans notre deuxième langue aussi, le Canada est très fier de ses coupeurs en environnement et que ces coupeurs soient reconnus par la communauté internationale. Face à l'un des pires défis de notre époque, nous sommes vraiment très heureux de se distinguer sont inacceptables. Encore une fois, je vous remercie pour vos critiques et soyez assurés que nous continuerons à vous décevoir.
Wow, they've earned this one. So we've already seen that Canada does not have a plan to cut emissions. So what do they have if they don't have a plan to cut emissions?